Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We have an exciting presentation planned about healthy eating on a budget. So we plan to discuss how healthy eating doesn't have to cost more. My name is Veronica, and I'm a registered dietitian. I'm co-presenting today with my registered dietitian colleague Institute Cardiac Rehab Program at the University Health Network. The objectives today are to discuss how to save money at the grocery store, including best buys of each food grouping. We'll also provide a list of places to go when you don't have enough food, and we will share some budget-friendly recipes. If you've watched previous webinars, you're aware that we have some ground rules. The ground rules include that this session is for education only. We encourage you to connect with your healthcare provider for specific advice about your own situation. The presentation should last around 25 minutes, leaving about 15 minutes to answer your questions at the end. When you do submit a question, we'll answer the questions generally. And if you would like a more specific answer for your situation, we would ask you to please follow up with your healthcare provider or registered dietitian. If we don't have enough time to answer all the questions today, we encourage you to link back to our website, cardiaccollege.ca, and we will have written answers to all the submitted questions, which will be posted there within 48 hours. As you know, we're using Zoom to conduct this meeting, and just a point of orientation, if you hover your mouse at the lower part of the screen, you'll see a box that says Q&A. You can click this, and this is where we would ask you to write your questions for us. So once you click it, you should have this screen up here, this box that you can see on my screen up here, and that's where you have the opportunity to write in your questions that you have for us today. So we'll jump into the session today. And before we start to talk about how to save money at the actual grocery store, we thought it'd be important to discuss what we can do before we even go grocery shopping. Planning ahead is actually very crucial. So the first thing you should start to do, or start with, I guess, is to check to see what food you have in your home. So check your cupboards, your freezer, your vegetable crisper. And if you can, write down an inventory list of all these foods that you have in your house. You may actually be surprised at what meals you could probably make from just these foods alone. And creating this pantry list will force yourself to use the grocery dollars that are already in your cupboards in order to save money and possibly a trip to the grocery store. After you have a list of foods that are in your house, we encourage you to check flyers for sales and discounts. There are also some apps that you can download to your phone, like Flip, which is featured here. It can be used to price match. It also has all of the retailers' weekly flyers, so I think it's over 1,000 flyers that you can just scroll through to see. And they also have a search function, so if you're looking for a specific ingredient, then you can search there and see if it's on sale anywhere. Now, after you completed your food inventory and looked at the flyers, it's time to plan a menu for the week. So if you don't typically plan weekly menus, I really do encourage you to try this. Not only will it help you eat healthier, but you tend to enjoy your meals a lot more. I'm sure a lot of people can remember a time when they thought about what they're going to cook for dinner all day long. It really can consume you. So that's why meal planning for the whole week can allow you to free up space to think and enjoy other activities throughout the day because you already know what's going to be for dinner that night. If you haven't done this before, start small. You can try planning dinner for maybe 5 nights of the week and have a couple leftover nights scheduled in. And then once you've conquered dinner, then add lunch and breakfast to the mix. And if you don't know where to start with meal planning, I suggest starting with the food inventory list that you created. Perhaps there's a protein or vegetable kicking around that could be a building block for a meal. Maybe there's some chickpeas, canned tomatoes, green beans in your cupboard. And then you can find some pantry items that maybe can tie everything together, like some whole grain pasta or dried herbs that can make a delicious soup. Or if you're not sure what to cook with the items you already have in your home and need new ideas to populate your weekly menu, I have a few resources at the end of my slide to share some frugal yet tasty recommendations. Recipes don't need to be elaborate, and I encourage you to explore some simple recipes with few ingredients because these will cost less money and they taste just as great. So you do want to try to avoid recipes that call for one-time only ingredients that you're not likely to use again. And instead, I encourage you to plan for those, to purchase ingredients that can be used for more than one meal that week. Maybe your Monday night pasta calls for a handful of spinach. Well, don't let the rest of the bag of spinach go to waste. Plan for a spinach salad or a spinach quiche later in the week. It's also important to be cognizant of how much a recipe yields and account for that in your plan. So if meals produce leftovers, freeze them for future use, or be sure to eat them later on during the week. Planning for leftovers will help prevent food waste, but also save you money. So next, we encourage you to make a shopping list based on the menu you created. A list that you have at the store will help keep you from buying the items that you don't necessarily need, and this will save you money, but it will also save you time in the grocery store because you know what you need to buy, and you just grab those items. And lastly, one of my favorite tips today is to make sure that you eat before you grocery shop. People tend to buy items that they don't need when they're hungry, so try to schedule grocery shopping after a meal or eat a balanced snack prior to your shop. Now, once you're done preparing to grocery shop, it's time to discuss what you can do to save money while you're grocery shopping. And once you are shopping at the grocery store and you're looking for specific products on your list, then when you're looking at the shelves, I encourage you to look at the top and bottom shelves because the most expensive foods are often at eye level on the shelves. And I see this all the time with spaghetti sauce, and I'm sure now that I pointed it out, you'll be able to see it too, that the cheaper items are usually above or below eye level. Another great tip is to buy those store name or no name brands. And the truth is, a lot of our beloved name brand products taste just as good as their generic counterparts. So, sure, there'll be some exceptions, but try it for yourself because they usually do measure up with taste and quality of the brand names. And they can be about 15 to 35% cheaper. And then another easy thing to do is to check the unit price uh, of items to help you compare similar foods of different sizes. I'll explain more about unit pricing because it's a really useful tool that can be easily overlooked. So unit pricing allows you to find the best price of various sizes and brands, yet it eliminates the difficult math while you're at the grocery store, so you don't need to bring your calculator with you. So let's say you need to buy yogurt. It's easy to compare the price of different brands if you can find a 6-ounce container of yogurt in each brand. But it gets more difficult if there isn't a 6-ounce container to compare to. And that's where the unit price breaks it down for what the product costs per ounce or per milliliter. In an inexpensive product, the unit price may be a smaller number, like 5 cents per ounce. So the unit price is often found on the shelf in the grocery store. It's usually found in small print, so you may have to bring your glasses or magnifying glass, but you'll be able to see it. It's usually right underneath the price of the product. It is typically cheaper to buy the larger size of what you need, but there are a lot of times when it's not. So that's why you'd want to check this unit price. And also to keep in mind that even if the larger size is cheaper, it is still only a good deal if your family will use it or if you have the space to store it. Now, you can take a look at the example I have here. At first glance, you may think the smaller yogurt container is cheaper because it only costs 72 cents compared with the larger container at $1.62. But if you break down the price per ounce, you will see that the unit price of the smaller yogurt is 12 cents per ounce, and the larger yogurt is cheaper at 5 cents per ounce. So even though the larger yogurt container is more expensive, it has more ounces of food. And then at home, so if you're looking for some other tips to help stretch your food dollar, a really important point that comes to mind is to buy less prepared foods and cook more meals at home. Not only could this save you money, but it can sometimes be the healthier option too. When you purchase convenience foods, even healthy ones, you're mostly paying for packaging and someone else doing the work. So an easy example of an expensive convenience product is, sliced and ready to go fruit. If you take an apple, for example, you pay about $1 more per apple just to have it washed and cut for you. And this is a task that would take a minute maybe to execute. So, and another example would be the frozen meals. Frozen meals are far more expensive than the raw ingredients in it. And in that case, frozen meals can also be loaded with ingredients that you don't really want or need, like high levels of salt, sugar, or fat. So if you can try to cook at home more often, and then when you do, double the recipe so it can be refrigerated or frozen for leftovers. And this could be, you buy some ground beef on sale and you make a big batch of spaghetti sauce for pasta dinner, and then you can refrigerate or freeze the rest of that sauce to be used maybe in a lasagna another night that week, or later if you do choose to freeze it. So I hope this helps. And now I'm going to pass this on to Fatim to discuss which foods to buy when grocery shopping.
Thanks, Veronica. Those were some great tips on what to think about even before you go grocery shopping, and then also what to look for on the grocery store shelves. I'd like to now give you some tips on best buys for different food categories, and I'm going to start with the fruits and vegetables. These can often be quite pricey, especially during colder months. One of the great things that we're lucky to have is local produce, and it's always a great idea to buy local if it's available, as it's usually less expensive and tastier. In Ontario, things like carrots, cabbage, onions, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and apples are available at a reasonable price all year round. Pretty soon we'll get into the spring vegetables like asparagus, lettuce, and berries coming up. And those are usually great buys. Another thing you want to keep in mind is that buying bags of fruits and vegetables is usually cheaper than buying them individually or by the pound. So for example, a 5-pound bag of apples might cost you around $4, but if you were to buy them loose, they might be more than double the price at maybe $2 a pound. There are also some companies like No Name that sell bags of slightly imperfect fruits and vegetables at even lower prices. And these are just smaller or maybe misshapen, but the taste is the same and the nutrients are exactly the same as the regular ones. An added benefit of buying pre-bagged produce during the time of COVID-19 is that they've probably been handled or touched by less people, which makes them a safer choice overall. For many of us, we're grocery shopping less often these days, and we need our produce to last longer. So be sure to store your fruits and vegetables separately in the fridge, as certain fruits can release gases that might cause your vegetables to spoil quicker. So keep them in their separate bins. And when you're looking at root vegetables like onions and potatoes, you can store them in a cool, dark cupboard, or if you have a basement, you can store them in the basement and they'll last longer. Another great long-lasting option is to buy frozen fruits and vegetables. These are flash frozen soon after picking, so they retain all their vitamins and minerals, and they're just as nutritious, if not more nutritious, than some of the fresh produce you can buy. They're also pre-washed and pre-cut, so they're very convenient. So for example, when I'm making a stir fry, I like to buy a bag of frozen stir fry mix. It's quicker and much less expensive than going and buying 5 or 6 different types of fresh vegetables. Frozen fruits are also a great option. They're great to top your yogurt or add to a smoothie. And you want to look for ones that are frozen without added sugar. Canned fruits and vegetables are also another budget-friendly option that will last long on your shelf. You want to look for vegetables that are low in sodium or say no salt added. And when you're looking at fruit, you want to choose fruit that's packed in water or its own juice rather than syrup. Canned tomatoes are a great option this time of year when fresh tomatoes are so expensive, and they're perfect to use in things like pasta sauces, soups, stews, and curries. Another great option for discounted fruits and vegetables is signing up for a food box delivery service such as the Good Food Box. And they will give you either weekly or bi-weekly deliveries of fresh fruits and vegetables. They have specials right now for COVID-19. And if you go on foodshare.net, you can sign up and get more information. Okay, if we go on to meat and fish, these are often the most expensive items in our grocery carts. Buying pre-seasoned or pre-portioned cuts can even add to the cost. So try buying things like whole chicken to save money. Buy smaller portions of red meat and look for less expensive cuts such as stewing beef, inside round, or flank steak. Some of these less expensive cuts might be a little less tender because they're lower in fat, but you can always marinate them first or cook them in a liquid slowly to help them tenderize and also add lots of flavor. Oftentimes I have people ask me about fish because it can get quite expensive, especially when you're trying to meet the 2 to 3 recommended servings per week for heart health. And that's where you can still get all those heart-healthy omega-3s from frozen or canned fish. So choose plain varieties of frozen fish rather than the breaded ones, and look for canned fish in water rather than in a sauce or an oil. For fish such as salmon, one of the added bonuses is that most of the frozen or canned varieties are wild caught, and they can be actually lower in contaminants than some of the fresh farm salmon that you can buy. Looking for alternatives to meat can not only be more economical, but also more heart healthy. So when we look at legumes such as beans, lentils, and chickpeas, they're a great high fiber, high protein choice. The cheapest way to buy them is dry. They will need some pre-soaking and a longer cooking time, but you can make up a big batch and then freeze them in individual containers for future use. If you have a slow cooker or a pressure cooker or an Instapot, these are all great ways to cook up a big batch of beans. If you're short on time, you can also look at canned beans and chickpeas. These are very versatile and widely available. You can look for the no salt added variety. But if you can't find them these days with less stock on the grocery store shelves, you can buy the regular ones and just drain off the water and then maybe rinse them under cold running water for a few minutes to get rid of some of the sodium. If you look on our website, cardiaccollege.ca, there are some great tips and resources for cooking with these beans and lentils and chickpeas, and some great recipes as well. Soy products such as tofu and tempeh are also great for making meatless meals. They're a healthier and less expensive buy than looking for pre-made things like veggie burgers. And then lastly, eggs and nut butters are an inexpensive way to add protein to breakfast and lunch, and maybe even your dinner. Most people following a heart-healthy diet can still include at least a couple of eggs each week, and you don't have to buy the fancy ones. White eggs have the same nutrients as brown eggs, and for most of us, it's not necessary to pay more to buy omega-3 eggs if we're getting enough omega-3 foods such as fish in our diet. And then when it comes to nut butters, what you want to look for are ones that are labeled natural or have only one ingredient, such as peanuts. These need to be stored in the refrigerator, but they cost the same as regular peanut butter. And then, as Veronica mentioned, you can look for the no-name or the store brands, which will be at a better price point than the big brand names. If we move on then to dairy foods, looking for larger packaging is a good way to save money. So buying your milk in 4-liter bags is a better buy than a smaller carton. Now, if you live on your own or you can't get through 4 liters of milk before it expires, you can also freeze milk bags for up to 3 months, and then you just defrost them in the fridge and they taste just as good as fresh. Another option would be to buy skim milk powder. You can mix it with water, use it on your cereal, or use it in your cooking and baking. As Veronica mentioned, for things such as yogurt, it's always a good idea to look at the price per serving and look at the larger containers rather than buying the individual single-serve portions. And then you just scoop it out into a bowl, maybe top it with some frozen berries, and it makes a great snack. And then lastly, buying pre-sliced or pre-shredded cheese is convenient, but it also costs a lot more than buying a block of cheese. So you can grate it yourself and again, put it in the freezer. It'll last for about 6 months and it's ready to go whenever you need a little bit of cheese. And finally, let's take a look at some of our grain products. Whole grains generally are a good buy all year round. They're not too expensive and they're widely available in different forms. What you do want to look for are things that say 100% whole grain. Look for a different variety, things like whole wheat flour, brown rice, quinoa, barley, bulgur. They all make great choices. Packages of instant or flavored rice, noodles, or pasta tend to be more expensive and also higher in sodium than just buying the plain rice or pasta. And instant oatmeal is often higher in sodium and sugar and also more expensive than buying just a bag of plain rolled oats or steel cut oats. If you like cold cereal, again, checking for the unit price, usually the family size cereal boxes cost less than buying an individual smaller box. The Cardiac College website, again, has some great videos and tip sheets on choosing grain products, such as bread, cereal, and pasta. If you look under the Eat Healthy section and then click on Choosing Healthy Foods, you'll get some great short videos that'll give you some tips on what to look for when you're shopping for these grain products. Okay, so I'll just pass it back now to Veronica, and she'll talk about some other resources for when you can't afford to buy enough food.
Thanks, Fatim. So now I'll speak to where we can access food when money is tight. And the information I am going to provide is actually just for Toronto. So I apologize in advance for everybody who's not in Toronto, but it's just a few quick slides about some of the resources here. So unfortunately, actually a number of food banks in Toronto have closed during the crisis. I think it's about 40% of them. And the food programs that continue to operate are under immense pressure to meet the increased demand. The city is working to identify ways to keep existing food programs open and to fill the gaps left by the closure of the other programs. And the Prime Minister has also recently announced a $100 million investment for food banks and local organizations, which should help make these organizations, keep running. So right now, the City of Toronto has opened 6 new food banks in Toronto Public Library locations, and eventually the plan is to open 9 new food banks in total. So the best source of up-to-date information on community food programs is 211, and the program listings are updated daily as information is received from providers. So residents in Toronto can call 211 directly for information or view a map of local service providers on the 211 website, which is listed there, www.211toronto.ca. And here are some more links about other places that you could look for information. So Daily Bread Food Bank is a Toronto-based food bank. It has great information about what's happening in Toronto regarding the food banks, just daily news. So you could check that out. And then there's a Food Banks Canada. So if you're not in Toronto, I encourage you to look at this. It's a Find a Food Bank map, which is very user-friendly. So check out that website. And if you're in Ontario, you could check out the Feed Ontario interactive map, because they have another map available there, which is also very user-friendly. So just note that it is important that even though these websites do list food banks, I would still encourage you to call them in advance just to make sure that they are open. Like I said, some have closed, or they could be operating at reduced hours due to COVID-19. Another place you can go is Red Cross. So as you know, that the province of Ontario recommended everyone over the age of 70 to self-isolate. So the City of Toronto is working with Red Cross to provide food hamper delivery to seniors and others in need who are unable to leave their homes to access food. So if that includes you, if you are a senior or you don't have alternative access to food through family, friends, or other food delivery services. So if you require the service, call this number here. And if you can donate, the Food Banks of Canada CEO stated that without the public support, these crucial services will have a hard time staying open. So please be as generous as you can, whether it's time or money. So if you can donate, there's the website to donate. And if you can volunteer, you can check out the website there to volunteer. Now, I did promise you some frugal and tasty recipes. So Fatim did mention our website, www.cardiaccollege.ca. So if you visit that, you can click that Eat Healthy section, and then there's a recipe tabs on the left-hand side. Will bring you to the recipe videos that we have created. The videos are with a chef from Longo's, so they are pretty tasty, and they include, things like minestrone soup, make your own pizza, make your own hummus. So I encourage you to check them out. There's another blogger I've been following since my university years, and her site is called Budget Bites. She has numerous recipes on her site, and she breaks them all down by cost. You can use the search function of her website, which is highlighted here, to type in any foods that you maybe have on hand or maybe that are on sale when you're looking at your flyers, and that can help you narrow down the recipe selection. She also shares some amazing tips on how to freeze and store foods to save money. So another great website to check out. And Good and Cheap is actually a cookbook. It was a recipe book that was developed for people with a limited income, particularly those on a $4 per day food stamp budget. And it is a recipe book that you can buy, but they have a PDF that's free to download off their website. And it's also available in Spanish here as well. And then lastly, www.unlockfood.ca is a good recipe or a good website that you can find some economical recipes. So all you have to do is search for food choices when money is tight, and there'll be a number of PDFs that will pop up, and you can download them to try some of those delicious recipes. So that's it for our formal presentation. It is important to get the most for your money, and we hope that you learned something today that can help with that. So I'm going to hop on to the question and answer icon now to see if there are any questions from the audience.
So Veronica, there is a question that's come up, and it's asking, does FoodShare serve the US? Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it does. I know there is a FoodShare office in Toronto, as well as different sites around Ontario, such as Hamilton and Kingston. There are similar programs across Canada. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of programs in the US, but maybe that's something we can look up and share later.
So that was our only question that we have here. So if you do have any other questions, feel free to type them in now.
We have a comment from Flo. There are also food recovery programs available, at least here in East Kootenay of BC. You don't have to apply, you just let them know you are in need. Well, that's a great resource to know.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions. Do you see any, Fatim?
No, I don't.
Okay, so that's great. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Just leave you with this last slide here. Just to stay tuned, for tomorrow's presentation at 1 p.m. that will discuss setting goals and action plans at home. So thank you again for everyone for attending today, and stay tuned for tomorrow.